Good afternoon, Council. Nice to see everybody and staff, and thank you very, very much for stepping in. Giving up the slide this morning. Help that we need with almost sort of in the background doing our job for us. So I'd like to call this meeting to order at 1 p.m. And if we could have the meetings of this proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made. Samantha, could you call the
Yep. Mayor Janet Clarkson, are you present?
I am.
Deputy Mayor Ron Windover.
Present.
Councillor Carol Armstrong. Councillor Peter Franzen. And Councillor Terry Lambshead. Perfect. And for staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer. Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk.
Present.
Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Barbara Waldron, Director of Building and Planning.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Evan Greiger, Director of Public Works. Chelsea Carpenter, Waste Management and Public Works Coordinator.
Present.
Lynn Holtz, Economic Development Officer.
Present.
And Bianca Dragicevic, Temporary Records Management Coordinator, is present. I guess, if everyone could just move their mics a little bit closer. I think we're just having some audio. Yeah, just see if that helps. Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Okay, we're going to do a round acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge the Trent Lakes and Municipality are located on the Treaty 20, Municipality territory and in the traditional territory of Municipality nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Alderville, Bexley, Third Lake, Regina Island, Hiawatha, Lama, and Scugog Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity. We will continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their thoughtful integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to
Okay, try again.
Okay, so we've had some technical difficulties, so we're going to repeat some of this. We respectfully acknowledge the Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory and in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Rama, and Scugog Island First Nations. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibility as members of council. Thank you. Now, after 41 years of dedicated service, Ivan Coombs is retiring as a Director of Public Works. Ivan's last day is October the 7th. Ivan started as a laborer with Harvey Township in 1980 and over time began to work as a truck driver operator. In 2005, Ivan was promoted to the four-person position for the Galway-Cavendish area, and in 2012, Ivan was appointed as the Acting Director of Public Works. This appointment was made permanent in March of 2013. On behalf of council and staff, I would like to wish Ivan a happy and healthy retirement. I also wanted to express my sincere appreciation for Ivan's 41 years of dedicated service. Let's give Ivan a hand. Now, and another nice piece of information, Sarah Della Amateur joined Trent Lakes as our junior planner on September the 27th. Sarah brings her experience as a summer student with the Township of South Stormont, working in their building and planning departments. She has a positive attitude and great enthusiasm. Welcome, Sarah. We wish you success. Now, at this time, I'm going to ask if anyone has a pecuniary interest. I'm going to remind council members of their obligation to declare any pecuniary interest they may have at this time or at any time during the meeting. Now I need a motion to approve the agenda. Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion has carried. We're going to adopt the minutes of the special council meeting of September the 17th, regular council meeting of September the 21st, statutory public meeting of September the 21st. A motion to adopt all of these minutes. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Franzen, all in favor? Motion is carried. We have minutes and reports from committees and boards. Lynn Holtz, Economic Development Officer, on behalf of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, re the 5-year Economic Development, Tourism and Recovery Strategic Plan. Motion, please. Motion, please. Deputy Mayor Windover. They went to sleep on me. Councillor Lambshead. All in favor? Motion is carried. Again, Lynn Holtz, Economic Development Officer, on behalf of the Economic Development Advisory Committee, Buckhorn Trail Town Initiative Funds. Motion, please.
I was wondering if she would like to speak to that.
Yes. Pardon?
I was wondering if our Lynn Holtz would like to speak to that before we make a motion.
Sure. Lynn, are you there? And would you like to speak to the 5.2 Economic Development Advisory Committee, Buckhorn Trail Town Initiative Funds?
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Clarkson and members of council. Speaking through you, Madam Mayor, you have before you a report regarding the Buckhorn Trail Initiative Funds. This report was prepared on behalf of the Economic Development Advisory Committee. The Economic Development Advisory Committee is requested and received from council the funds from the former Buckhorn Trail Town Group initiatives to continue the group's projects in the hamlet of Buckhorn. Upon reviewing several of the items, the committee became aware that COVID has greatly impacted services and supply materials, undervaluing many of the expected costs. The Economic Development Advisory Committee is therefore requesting that the committee be allowed to redirect $10,000 of the funds to support the replacement of the main Buckhorn Gateway sign, and that $4,000 be redirected to the purchase of the bike repair station at Odenang Park, and that the balance of the Buckhorn Trail Town budget be deferred to the 2022 budget to be utilized at the discretion of the Economic Development Advisory Committee for projects within the hamlet of Buckhorn. And I am happy to try to answer any questions that council may have. Thank you.
Okay, are there questions from the floor? Yes.
Maybe just a comment. I'm not sure this was in your report, Lynn, but the allocation for Trail Town initially was about $22,000. So what we're talking about is a balance of about $8,000 to be deferred until 2022.
That is correct. It was $21,959. Thank you, Councillor Armstrong.
No problem. I would make that motion to receive the report and to support that $10,000 be used for the gateway sign, up to $4,000 for the bike repair station, and the balance to be deferred to the 2022 budget for discretionary use by the Economic Development Advisory Committee.
I would have a comment before we vote on this. How much research was there done on this sign? $10,000 seems to me to be a lot of money. So Lynn, was there any other quotations asked for rather than just going, say, to the one source?
We haven't actually requested any quotations or a request for proposal on the sign as yet. The Economic Development Advisory Committee has, I think, budgeted about $10,000 to this project itself. So this is just to bolster that. The main sign is in a sorry state of repair. We did get in touch with Carver Creek, and even at this pricing, it may not replace the present sign and the quality of sign that's there. We may have to look for a slight variation, but EDAC has also discussed opening up to maybe other ideas for a gateway sign into Buckhorn.
Okay. So it's not carved in stone yet. This is just, you're making sure the budget's there for whatever comes forward.
Yes, they are requesting the budget to be there.
Okay. So Terry, you were going to be the seconder of that,
Second the
please?
motion, yes.
So Councillor Lampstead is our seconder. All in favor? That motion is carried.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, since Lynn is available, I'm not sure if you wanted to, if any members of council want to go back to the first report that she had.
Okay.
Just before that, she could speak to it if you have any questions.
Thank you. Lynn, sorry for rushing through this. Did you have comments on the previous one, the 5-year economic development one that you would like to make?
No, speaking through you, Madam Mayor, that report was prepared on behalf of the recommendation from the Economic Development Advisory Committee. In summary, the committee is requesting that council support their recommendation that council include in the 2022 budget funding for a comprehensive 5-year economic development, tourism, and recovery strategic plan to be prepared by an outside consultant with input from EDAC on the scope of the work proposed. The strategic, a 5-year economic development, tourism, and recovery strategic plan does meet the 10 priorities that the council had identified. And also the estimated cost would probably, if maybe that's gone up a little bit, would be approximately $41,000 to $45,000 or $45,000.
Okay, so if there's no comments, we vote. Comment?
I have a comment. I don't know about this hiring a consultant. I think the biggest problem we have is that we don't have affordable housing. I don't know what the consultant's going to tell us or how much help is expected from the municipality to struggling businesses. And if it is, it should be all businesses, just not just tourism. There are a lot of other businesses that are struggling out there, not just tourism.
Yes.
Madam Mayor, first I'd like to revisit the motion because I don't think the motion we passed earlier.
Because that wasn't.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the motion was.
I think
previously. Could we strike that and revisit this?
There's further discussion.
Yeah.
About that study. further in their agenda, so
So if we could strike that previous motion, if that's, okay.
Sure. So that was Economic Development Officer on behalf of Economic Development Advisory Committee, 5-year Economic Development, Tourism and Recovery Strategic Plan. That's the one we're striking?
Right.
Okay.
And I'd like to comment on that as a member of EDAC. One of our 10 short-term priorities was to have an economic strategic plan done. And I would still like to see us do that. And we can decide the form and the content in collaboration with the EDAC. The only thing I would change, I would make the motion to receive the report, and a little change in the wording. I would support their recommendation to consider for funding in the 2022 budget an economic development strategic plan. Because I don't think we want to be deciding budget items one-off until we get to the full budget discussion. So I would make that motion with that change in wording.
Are you okay with that, Peter?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I will second that with a slight little comment. And it does say it's a recovery strategic plan. So if we're trying to recover from, and that's all business are trying to recover.
Yeah.
So it does include everyone.
But it specifically says tourism.
If I may, Councillor Franzen, and speaking through you as the mayor, the reason that we included it as a economic development, tourism and recovery strategic plan is our major industry in our area is tourism. And also with the funding that has been coming out of the governments at different levels, this kind of provides that blanket to make that application into that funding.
I don't entirely agree that tourism is the main industry. I think construction is the main industry within this municipality. There's far more funds that go through construction than through tourism.
I think to Lynn's point, though, I think what we're looking for is recovery dollars. And I think what you're, Lynn, am I hearing that the recovery money may be directed at tourism, that this is a way of maybe getting that money as opposed to watering down that request? Or did I read something into that?
We're seeing the government releasing funding that is meant for resiliency, which this would cover. It's for economic, like a blanket economic recovery, but it also allows us to tap into some of the funding that is being released specifically to the tourism sector. And a lot of our services that are provided in our municipality kind of play into the ability of the tourism industry to attract people into the area. And it's a lot of the people who come here and visit through the resorts and things like that who decide that they want to move here and build a cottage here. So they all kind of tie together, and it just allows us to form those links for whatever funding may become available.
I personally think that if we don't have with the county a strategy on low-income housing, we're not going to be able to find the personnel to work in the tourist industry and any other industry, including construction. If the average house price is between $500,000 and $600,000, a person making $15 or $20 an hour certainly can't afford to buy a house. And there are so few rental facilities, and the prices there are $2,000 to $2,500 a month. It's not feasible for somebody working at a minimum wage job or a little better to come to this area and supply labor to the tourist industry, the construction industry, and whatever else we have. We have a real manpower shortage right now.
Okay, Councillor Franzen, I agree with you 100%, but I think we've got two topics going here.
Okay.
I think we're going to deal with the one we've got in front
It's
of
my
us.
soapbox, Janet.
No,
Sorry.
no, it's not a soapbox. I agree with you 100%, but I think it's a strategy that we have to work on separately. So keep the passion for it, because we need that to move forward, whether it's tiny houses or whatever. But let's deal with the agenda item right now, if we can, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
So we've got our first and seconder. Can I have a motion, please? I've got the motion. All in favor? Okay, thank you very much. And thanks, Peter. We need to keep that on the front burner. I agree with you. Okay, liaison reports for council, boards, and committees. Council, are there reports that you would like to bring from the EDAC, PRCAC, Police Services Board, or the Library Board? Yes.
Just one little comment. We didn't announce the result of the vote for our last item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, I thought I did. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you.
Just for our phone people that don't have a video. Thank you.
Keep me honest. Okay, of the 4 that I rhymed off there, anybody want to comment on any of those? Okay, then motion to receive. Deputy Mayor Windover?
We don't need a motion for that.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to go into the statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act.
We don't have that.
Through you, there's no public
Nothing
meeting
there.
today. Yep.
Okay, presentations. We will now have a presentation from Jane Vazansky regarding a staff and council compensation review overview. Please unmute your audio and or share your camera and make your presentation. You will have 20 minutes. I'll ask council that all questions are saved until the end of this presentation.
Okay, thank you. I think I'm on screen, on audio as well. Okay, great. Thank you very much. Donna Taggart had contacted me and asked me to provide the council with just a bit of an update in terms of the compensation review that is actually been launched. It's underway, and just to give you an idea as to what's going to be the steps that we're going to follow, and some insight into the comparator organizations that we're going to include in the review. Next slide. Oh, am I working this? Okay, sorry. So just a bit of background in terms of what the review is all about. So we were engaged through an RFP process to undertake the custom review for the non-union staff. So it's a twofold review. We do have the staff that we're looking at, as well as the council remuneration and expense policy. The objectives on the staff review is really to make sure that you're competitive. As we've just heard the conversation, that it's hard to get the staff and to make sure that it's affordable for the staff to come in. There is a legislative compliance component in terms of pay equity legislation. And then internally, you also want to make sure that your salary grid is internally equitable. So employees naturally will compare themselves to their colleagues that sit in the chair beside them and make comparisons in terms of their salaries. So we want to make sure it's internally equitable given the duties and responsibilities. In terms of the elected officials or the council review, we want to make sure that the compensation that is being paid is at least fair and equitable as well, and that it's sufficient to attract a pool of candidates to run for elected office, and that it recognizes that there is a significant amount of time that is required to fulfill those duties as an elected official. But it also has to be cognizant of ability to pay as well. Next slide. Just a little bit about Gallagher and the organization that I work for. So we are a specialized HR compensation practice located in Toronto is our head office. And the compensation group that is part of Gallagher, which is a larger insurance and risk management organization, it was formed through the acquisition of McDowell Associates, which is the firm that I came from. And in 2019, there was another competitor, Compass Group, that was merged as well. So we now form the compensation consulting service in this organization. We have in-depth expertise. We're related to all kinds of aspects of total rewards design, compensation design, private sector, public sector, and not-for-profit. Pay equity compliance and job evaluation, which is needed to support internal equity, are core competencies of our organization. So this is our area of expertise. And then we also have extensive experience in developing a pay policy being where do you want to target your market or your pay at? Do you want to be in the middle of the market? Do you want to be leading in the marketplace, or hopefully not lagging? It wouldn't be my recommendation to an organization to lag the market. But we also do custom market studies as well to make sure that you are externally competitive. The project team that I have, my colleagues, Amanda Kim and Sue Fong, we've worked together on a number of municipal assignments. Municipal sector is my bailiwick in terms of the compensation practice firm. So some extensive experience within that sector. Next slide. Whenever we approach a compensation review, regardless of the scope of the review, for example, in this case, it really is focusing on the market, but these are the concepts or the components that we always are mindful of when we are doing our reviews. So it's all about compensation fairness. So we want to make sure that people are paid what we call felt fair pay, that when they look at the other colleagues in the organization, see what they do versus what they have to do, it has to feel fair. So we do that through job evaluation to establish a proxy value for a position, and then we create a salary structure around that. Compliance, we're always mindful of ensuring that any of our clients are compliant with the pay equity legislation. It is legislation that is alive and well, and there are reviews that are going on across the province. And compliance is about looking at the male gendered positions, so a position that is male dominated versus a position that is female dominated, and making sure that the female position is paid at least as much as the male position. Another component is competitiveness. Obviously, you want to be able to attract new candidates and then also retain those candidates as well. So we have to make sure that we have a competitive marketplace that we're looking at and take that into consideration in setting our salary rates. And then the last item that we are always mindful of, particularly in the government and not-for-profit sectors, is affordability. It would be lovely to go into an organization and say, yeah, I think you should all have a 20, 30, 40% raise in your salary grid, but that's just not something that's practical in this setting. So we have to be mindful of the ability to pay and the budget impacts. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, so the last review was completed in 2018. Oops, I'm sorry, I apologize. The last review was completed in 2018, and as I understand, it was on the heels of when the 1/3 tax exemption changes had come through. And so that was one of the ideas or the impacts on that review. But it also, I note that it only included the lower tier municipalities within Peterborough County. So it had a fairly narrow focus in terms of the review or the comparators that were included in that analysis. We believe that selecting the comparator group is critical to the success of a market review, a custom review, and it adds to credibility and validity to the analysis that we do. Ideally, when we're looking at a staff review and a council review, we would like to have one comparator organization or one comparator group for both sets of analyses, but sometimes we will do a little bit of a tweaking along that line to make sure that there is some alignment with the scope of responsibilities. So when we had an initial project review discussion with Donna Taggart, we looked at some preliminary comparators, and we gave some consideration to your last review that you had in 2018, and then looking at other organizations and looking in terms of size. And how do we determine size? We can look at population served, your operating budget, what's the employee complement that you have in the organization versus the comparator organizations. You want to look at comparator organizations that have similar markets for labor, for their recruitment. Where are you attracting people from, and where are you losing your staff to, as well as another consideration. And then, of course, we want to make sure there's equivalent scope of services in the comparator organizations. If you had, for example, a wastewater treatment plant and a lot of positions that were supporting that, then we would want to make sure that we would have comparator organizations that had that similar service as well, to make sure we've got some good, robust data to work with. Next slide. So it's a bit of a large group of comparator organizations. There's 14 now. I have highlighted or slightly shaded in gray. Those are the ones that are within the county, your lower tier comparator organizations. But we've also included a couple of organizations or municipalities that we felt were on the perimeter or kind of on the outer edge of your municipal organization and your geographic placement, and organizations that we thought would have similar challenges and influences. So I mean, you're close to a large urban center, but you're not that close to a large urban center. So these are some of the things that we would take into consideration. On the chart here is just the population. That's just one of the indicators. So we would take, as I said, we would look at geography as well, and what are the other influences that we know that are affecting these organizations. So really part of the intent here today is for you to have a look at the comparator organization, give me some feedback in terms of this is the group that we're starting with, if you have any concerns or questions about that as well. Next slide. So the approach, how do we undertake the compensation review for the elected officials? We've developed a survey questionnaire that we will send out to the comparator organizations, and we will ask specific questions about the base remuneration being paid to equivalent elected official positions. Are there any additional per diems that are being paid to the members of council for attendance at board meetings or other council meetings? Some municipalities have a maximum of 25 meetings for your base remuneration, but then anything above that, they might pay an additional per diem. So we're going to explore that. Committee participation. Sometimes it's difficult to get this information in a consistent manner, but we will ask the questions nonetheless in terms of how many committees are your council members required to participate in, and what's in order to get kind of an indication of your time and effort that is being required as in your role. Asking questions about vehicle allowance and mileage. There are some municipalities, they do tend to be in the larger ones, where they have the mayor may have a car allowance. Typically in the smaller municipalities, it's a per kilometer reimbursement rate. So we want to know what are people paying, and what are the conditions around that. Is it just with travel within the municipality, or is it travel beyond the municipality? So what are the conditions in terms of when is it allowable expense? We'll explore whether health and dental benefits are available to the elected officials, and if they are available, who's paying the premiums? Is there a cost sharing that is implemented, or is it 100% covered off by the municipality? Accidental death and dismemberment is often the insurance that we see most frequently being made or extended to elected officials. Participation in OMERS. Some municipalities do allow for it, subject to the conditions of the pension plan, but we want to make sure that there's some comparison there. And then the other is any other administrative and technical considerations. So do you have access to and availability of administrative staff to support you in executing your duties as an elected official, and what other technology supports that are available to you in terms of, do you have laptops, do you have computers, do you have cell phones, is your internet coverage paid, things along that line. So we want to basically get a packaged look at what is being offered to your comparator organization. So it's not just about base salary or base remuneration. It does take into consideration some of the other aspects that are available to elected officials, and making sure that we can quantify that to make some comparisons. So we'll gather that information from all of the comparator organizations, we'll collate it, summarize it, and then come back to council with some of our observations in terms of the placement of the municipality of Trent Lakes versus where your comparators are offering or providing to their elected officials. Our target completion date or report date, we're hoping to come back to council in late November with the results of our review for both the council and for the staff review. Okay, and I'll question.
Thank you. Council, questions? Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through you, Madam Mayor. First of all, great presentation. It looks like a very comprehensive review of all aspects of compensation, which I think is exactly what we're looking for. The one question I do have, you will have or be administering a custom survey questionnaire. And my question to you is, who will be completing that within each of the comparator municipalities?
It can vary. Sometimes it'll be the CAO that will complete it, or the clerk, or they will send me their bylaw if the bylaw is a comprehensive one that will answer all of those questions. And then once we receive the data, if we have any follow-up questions, we will follow up with whoever has completed the documentation.
So, sorry, just to follow up. So it'll be one survey per comparator.
Per comparator, yes, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Lamshead.
Yeah, there's another component there that we missed, I think. It's our water treatment responsibilities. We have 3 or 4 subdivisions that the municipality of Trent Lakes through council are responsible for maintaining, and there is, some responsibilities and liabilities attached to that.
Okay. Noted. Anyone else? Is this survey going to go out to individual councillors?
No, we send the survey just to collect the not clinical, it's not the right term, but just the base information, the salary information and the allowable expenses, what's written into policy or into a bylaw. So it does not go out to councillors. We occasionally will engage council prior to initiating the review to see if there is anything else that you would like us to survey on, but not typically asking, are you happy with your salary kind of question.
I find that to be a little bit narrow because we initiated this survey in the first place, and the survey was initiated on the salary component of the elected officials. And the elected officials are the ones, in my view, that are in the most jeopardy of this. I've been at this, I guess, for probably 16 years, and we have seen over a period of time go backwards with the loss of per diems, the loss of our 1/3. When you get into the upper levels of salary, if people get 2%, then that's something that people say, well, only 2%. We're worth a lot more than that. But if you give us 2%, that's like going to McDonald's. So I think when we're looking at comparisons or compared whatever, I think what we're looking at is a way of determining the true value of an elected official, so that we can encourage people who have jobs to be able to go into this business. We've got one of our people here who is a young enough person to be in a full-time trades position. He did a bit of a survey and came up with his wage at $7 an hour. Now, you cannot expect people that you would like to have go into this business if they can't afford to at least break even a little bit. So I don't think anybody expects that these wages are going to, top out at a terrific amount. But I think over time we have to become more comparable. We've got to be able to encourage younger people who work, people who are engaged in the community. So I would like to have seen more separation between the two, because I think when Donna has done comparables to other areas when we've been doing hiring and whatever, I think we and I could be wrong in the overall scope, but it seems we fit in there not too badly. Over time, Trent Lakes has been the leader of some of these things. So I'm not sure that we have to be part of the pack. I'm not sure we can't be a leader of the pack. I could give you different instances, but there's no point in getting into that right now. But we have, we have got the largest township in terms of areas that our councillors have to travel. Our car expenses, I mean, you get so much a kilometer, but every 3 years you're buying a new car. It's not like you're in Lakefield and you go to the township office. We'll go 20 miles, and then if we've got a meeting somewhere, we may go another 20 kilometers. So our distances traveled are much, much greater. So I think there's uniqueness with us, and I guess I would just like to have seen, and I don't think it's too late, but I would like to see this review dig down a little bit deeper into the elected official. Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm saying this from the standpoint of a person who's retiring this year. So this is not something I'm going to the bank with.
Okay.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one other question, if I may, Jane. The observations that you bring forward, will they be unique to each municipality? So for example, you will have a set of recommendations based on your work for Trent Lakes and for Cavan Monaghan and for the county. Is that what we can expect?
Okay, so for Trent Lakes, what I will do is I will come back to council with a recommendation on the staff salary grid. So we'll accumulate all of the information. We'll see how competitive you are on a job level, and then overall as well, whether you are hitting the middle of the market, are you leading the market, and then I'll come up with a recommendation on a new salary grid to keep you competitive. That could be if you have some recruitment issues, if you have other concerns that are impacting on your ability to recruit staff, such as cost of living, which is something I'd heard prior to the presentation. So these are considerations that might say, in order for us to survive or to make sure we keep the staff that we have that we want to keep and attract new candidates and new qualified employees, we might want to pay a little bit more than the middle of the market. So that would be a recommendation that I could give you some considerations around, including the cost. What is the cost to implement those recommendations? Same thing with council, with the elected officials. We will look at, typically we will, whatever pay policy we select for staff, we would say that the council should be aligned to that as well. So if we end up indicating that the staff reviews says we should be paying at the 55th percentile or perhaps the 60th percentile, so we're more of a leading organization, then we would say the same thing for council. We'll take a look at what does that mean in terms of dollars. The other thing that you can look at as well is what are your municipality comparators doing in terms of, as you say, you have kilometers. So perhaps it should be a higher kilometer rate given the distances traveled, or a higher base remuneration and keep the expenses kilometers at the same level. But recognizing the total picture, it's actually with the staff review, it's a little bit easier because you evaluate a position, you have the relativity of one position to another position, and then you have like jobs in other municipalities. With elected officials, you can have some elected officials that are very, very extremely active in their role, and it's requiring more than a full-time commitment to fulfill the role. Other elected officials might be a smaller municipality that's less active, and so it requires really, it's a part-time position and does not require an extensive amount of effort to participate, or even your taxpayers and constituents that you're representing and the amount of effort and work that it requires on that. That's harder to quantify. So really, when it comes to elected official remuneration, what we have to rely on for the most part is what are your comparator organizations paying? What's your capacity to pay? And what are some of the other options? If you have a lot of committee work going on, maybe we take a look at reinstating a per diem. If you had a per diem in the past, maybe that's something that we should be considering. It might be a way to manage the costs effectively. Or again, increasing the base remuneration. As I said, my understanding in the 2018 review, you lost you stepped backwards because of the 1/3 tax exemption that was removed. So your effective take-home pay was less. Not a lot of municipalities did that in one way, shape, or another. They more or less made them whole. So that was a consideration amongst a number of municipalities. I think with this review as well, we're looking at a broader scope of comparator organizations and not just your comparators within the lower tier of the county. So I think I forgot to go back to your actual question, which is presenting a report. So we will have analysis that will say, here's Trent Lakes, here's what you are paying, here's what you're remunerating, and here are your expense policies, and here is the aggregate of your comparator organizations. We don't necessarily show you the level of detail. We can show you the detail on salary, base pay, but it's an extensive amount of data that comes in. So we have to kind of collate that and summarize it to say, this is the average of what people are paying for per diems. This is the average of what they're paying for kilometers. This is the middle of the market. This is what the 50th percentile would look like, or the 60th percentile, or whatever other pay policy we want to take a look at. So I guess the roundabout way of answering your question, it'll be one report that says Trent Lakes, here's where you stand, and here's where your comparators on aggregate are standing.
So if I may follow up, great information, but you're right to the yes/no question. I feel like I'm in a Senate hearing here. Will we get a report for Trent Lake that says, here's where you are relative to your comparators, and here is the recommended compensation package that we would put forward, just as you would put forward a recommendation for other townships? Or would you not go that far?
Yes, no. I couch my words carefully in terms of I will provide observations and things for council to consider in terms of any amendments to the current compensation program, as opposed to recommendations. I've been informed that council does not like to be told what to do, so I will be careful in saying that these will be my observations and things for you to take into consideration in making the decision.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
In my experience, I think the per diem is a really important component because it recognizes the hard work of counselors. Some counselors will go into this wholeheartedly, and they will be very, very active in the community. The per diem recognizes that. Other counselors are more at ease with the meetings and doing things that are sort of in-house kind of thing. So I think it has an encouraging, and I think it has a degree of recognizing hard work. Thank you.
Jen?
Yes.
I'd like to, through you, I'd like to make a comment about the kilometers, as you stated earlier, but to emphasize that when you're on committee of adjustment or even visiting ratepayers, there's a long wait on fire routes, and you're paid the same as you're driving on the highway. And the fire routes are very rough and very hard on your vehicle. You certainly can't go out and do the inspections for the committee of adjustment without a four-wheel drive, or you might be stuck there for a while.
It's your
so I think that has to be recognized in our mileage. We're not talking about highway mileage.
Well, I think that's to do with the rural township.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, we have more. Anyway, that's good comments, everyone. Can we have anyone any more to say, or can we ask for a motion to accept this this presentation? Yes.
Make a motion to receive.
Thank you, Councillor Franzen and Deputy Mayor Windover. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Thank you very much. We've given you some work to do, Jane.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Donna, we're looking Treasurer and Matthew Savino Human Races Partners, SHRP, vaccination policy.
So thank you, and through you, This policy is coming forward based on a direction from council at the September 7th meeting. Council asked that we come forward with a vaccination policy, and at that time directed that there would be no terminations in place for staff that elected not to vaccinate. That is what this policy is about today. I was going to briefly go over the aspects of it, but I think I will refer to Matthew to speak. Matthew has some limited time today. I very much appreciate him making time for us, but he does have to leave at 2:30, and he's been very clear with me on that. So I'm going to let Matthew take over at this time.
Thank you, Donna.
Thanks, Donna. And can you hear me okay and see my presentation?
Yes.
Yeah, so I appreciate you wedging me in. I've got a number of these presentations, as you can imagine, at council, different councils. These are all coming to be very live issues and lively discussions in some instances, which is great. As you know, the county has produced a policy, and the adjoining counties in our region have done so as well. I think I've read all of those policies. They have recommendations and corrective measures in them that include corrective measures and disciplinary action and even termination. So some municipalities are following the lead of those counties, and I would say that most of the municipalities within those counties, not just here but elsewhere, that have us as advisors have instead chosen to adopt the policy we're recommending, and that I'm going to briefly discuss, and then Donna's got an excellent report to share with you afterwards. So can we go to the next slide, please? And that's just my disclaimer. We can go to the next slide. So I'm not a qualified epidemiologist nor a closet epidemiologist, but the statistics in our region and across the province are relevant because they inform the policies and the safety measures that you should and need to consider as an employer. So I don't want to be overly optimistic about this at all, but if you look at the trending in Ontario with the number of COVID cases, especially compared to 12 months ago, it's flattening. It's too soon to say that COVID rather is rolling over because we are just about to embark on the peak of flu season in the next coming months, but certainly in Ontario, and we can't say the same regrettably for some Western provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan, where the rate of vaccination and things like COVID passports and other restrictions that are in place in the province of Ontario and Quebec, their situation is much different. And among the reasons for it being much different are the relatively high rate of vaccination in Ontario in our region as well. So go to the next slide, and I won't spend too much time on this, but likewise, the IC unit capacity remains very manageable right now in Ontario. Again, we cannot say the same with regret of Alberta and Saskatchewan. They're in a dire situation, but they haven't taken the same proactive approach, and they don't have the directives of mandatory vaccination policies, which have been implemented in many health unit and provincial jurisdictions here in Ontario. Next slide, please. And regrettably, though the IC unit admission is manageable, well over 90% of the people in the ICU are, of course, this should be no surprise to anyone who looks at statistics. They are the largest group of people who are in the IC units right now are those who have not fully vaccinated. So I think that goes without saying. So next slide, please. So, I mean, this is why every health unit in the province, every one of them supports vaccination, okay? Not every health unit has released a recommendation that workplaces issue vaccination policies, but you are in the Peterborough Public Health Unit, and not only has it released a recommendation, it's released a strong recommendation that as an employer, you do just that. And those policies require proof of vaccination for unvaccinated employees if they have a medical exemption. It's a very limited exemption, by the way, or another protected grounds of discrimination under the Human Rights Code, which could be a religious exemption. We haven't seen any of those. And in fact, I'll pause right there for a moment to say that the Human Rights Commission, and this is only my opinion, and this is not not to criticize the Human Rights Commission, and I hope it doesn't come across that way. The Human Rights Commission released a policy clarification last week that was highly supportive of employers implementing these policies. In doing HR in 25 years, I have never seen the Human Rights Commission release anything that supported employers. This is the first time I had to sit down and read it twice and call a couple of colleagues I know in the law firm environment to make sure what I was reading was right. So this is an unprecedented situation that we find ourselves in, I think. So if we could go to the next slide. But having said all that, I do need to inform you that recommendations about vaccination policies from the health unit are just that. They are recommendations. This is not an instruction or an order for employers to do so. Strictly speaking, if an employer says, I get it, and we have preventative measures in place in our workplace, and we think those are sufficient, I refuse to implement a policy, and I haven't come across too many employers taking that stance, thankfully. There's no strict requirement to do so. So I will mention that. I think that's important. Next slide, please. So you've got to comply with advice, recommendations, and instructions are enforceable. So wearing your mask, physical distancing, proper hygiene protocols, those are enforceable. If you're an employer or an employee for that matter, and you refuse to comply with those instructions, you could be and should be fined by the public health unit, okay? But a recommendation, you cannot be fined for not following a recommendation. I will advise that. We have to understand both sides of this equation. Next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, I just said what I just said. So those things, coverings, distancing, screening, the daily screening that pops up on our HR Live platform, that's all required. Don't follow that at your own peril. Recommendations are just that, they're recommendations. So if we could go to the next slide. And we can go to the next slide. I'm not sure if we're going forwards or backwards here now. Here we go. So you've got some options. I think many of you have reviewed or are aware of the County of Peterborough's policy. I've read it. I've also read the adjoining county policies, and they look very similar to me. It's almost as if the same law firm drafted that policy. I don't know that to be the case. It's similar to our policy in many respects, but if I can put it this way, the county policy is I would suggest stronger than ours. It does have options in there for the employer to take corrective action against employees and even terminate them if they refuse to comply with the policy. Ours very clearly and intentionally does not. So if we could go to the next slide, and I want to be clear about this. This policy that we're recommending, it does not require any employee to vaccinate. None of the policies out there. I've been receiving some interesting calls and inquiries from different anti-vax groups, possibly because they're aware we're providing this policy to employers. I'm not sure. Doesn't matter. None of these policies, including the counties, results in an employee being restrained and injected with a vaccine. Okay, I'm not saying that to be silly. I'm saying that to be serious. Okay, that's not going to happen. So our policy, I'm going to read this because what we've recommended to our municipalities states, you strongly encourage vaccination and you require confirmation of vaccination status based on provincial regulations, but you're not making it mandatory. Employees, and this is very important, will not be discharged or disciplined as a consequence of their vaccination status. However, unvaccinated employees will need to observe additional precautionary measures. So we want to encourage staff to vaccinate. I think most of your staff are going to vaccinate. If some of your staff have a medical exemption, we're going to roll up our sleeves and work with them to ensure they're safe and that medical exemption is respected and accommodated. If you have some staff, this is our recommendation, you don't have to follow it, that don't have a medical vaccination, but just refuse to vaccinate, we do not want to create an environment of confrontation and put anyone in a position where they have to choose their job or vaccination. We think that is an untenable position. We think that is an unfair position to put anyone in. But we will, don't get me wrong, this policy has some teeth. If you refuse to vaccinate and you're medically capable of doing so, we are going to expect cooperation with any additional measures that may need to be implemented to support your safety in the workplace, the safety of your coworkers, and the safety of the community, full stop. And if anyone in that situation refuses to receive the policy in that spirit, we will have a serious conversation with them and we will determine other alternatives to deal with that situation. But my experience with your workforce, and I haven't had personal experience on an individual basis, is that you have a very good employee group, and I expect that a handful of them may choose not to vaccinate, and I expect those people will approach this policy in the spirit of cooperation and compromise that this policy is encouraging, both for the employer and the employees. So this, I spent a lot of time on this, but this is the key distinction between our policies and the majority of employer policies that you're seeing out there, and the, I guess, not rebellion, but the conflict that some of those policies are creating. I think that conflict is completely unnecessary, and so we recommend you take this course of action. However, we respect that you've got to balance all of these factors in your decision, and if you choose to adopt a policy like the one being recommended by the county, we will of course respect and assist you in that endeavor, okay? But this is what we're recommending. So if we could go to the next slide. Yeah, so the policy does say that additional accommodation or safety measures will need to be considered for those who can't vaccinate. And I'm just listing here, there's a number of things. We'll look at this on an individual basis. We'll look on at the type of job that the employee is working within. And we can go to the next slide as I'm talking. And if they're facing the public or in close proximity to coworkers, we will adjust the precautions and the safety measures accordingly to ensure you have adequate safety and infection prevention control measures in your workplace. And we're going to expect the whole team to get behind this. And I expect that that will be our experience with your team. So there's, I mean, the rapid antigen testing certainly is something that many employers are entertaining and going to implement in the fall when these policies roll out. Probably most of them are rolling out next month, unless you're in the healthcare sector. They've already started. In the healthcare sector, if you've got an IC unit, okay, the discussion and advice we would give you is very different from what I'm sharing with you this afternoon. But you don't have an ICU unit to my knowledge. So we'll go to the next slide, which I think opens it up to questions. Right, so there are some other aspects of the policy that need to be considered if we have a community outbreak, an emergency like we did last year in the province, and I'm hoping that we do not. An emergency, by the way, is an unexpected event. What we're going through now is completely unexpected, so we're in Ontario, at least, is in a much better place to manage this pandemic this year than we were a year ago, and we are aided in this endeavor by vaccination availability and high rates of adoption, voluntary adoption with the population in general. But if we're in an outbreak situation, unvaccinated staff may be put on an IDEL leave, but that leave is job protected, which means what it says, their job is guaranteed and open to them upon their return. And there are a number of government income support programs to support staff. And of course, the policy would allow staff to use any time off balances that they've accumulated for vacation or other things if that was required. And I'm really hoping that we do not suffer an outbreak in the province later this fall or winter. but the policy does contemplate if that happens, there'll be extraordinary measures that may need to be considered. But what we're not recommending, and what I don't think you should consider, is terminating or applying disciplinary action against your staff who refuse to vaccinate. We're not going there. Okay, I think the next slide is open to questions, and I will do just that.
Okay, council, who's first? Oh, you're a quiet bunch. Peter.
I'd like to thank you, Matthew, for the presentation. It's very informative. I really hope the few unvaccinated people that we have working in this municipality, including the fire department, are issued the higher grade masks, the medical masks, and that they're persuaded to use them.
Thank you for that. Anybody? Councillor Lamson.
Yeah, I thank you also, Matthew. It's an excellent report. Cooperation and compromise with unvaccinated people is quite important. I think being heavy-handed and eliminating a person from their position because they are unable or not unable, but unwilling to get vaccinated is a little heavy-handed, and I don't think we need to go there. I think most people will be cooperative, and we can find some compromises that should fit most of our employees that aren't unvaccinated.
Agree.
Anyone else? Carol.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Matthew. Good presentation. Honestly, this is a tough issue. On the one hand, I worry that if we had a mandatory vaccination policy, we will be understaffed because we will have people who will leave rather than choose to vaccinate. And we have been in a chronic understaffing situation for probably a year and a half. We're just starting to get to a level where we have sufficient staff resources. So that consequence of a mandatory vaccination policy really scares me. On the other hand, there are people who are vaccinated who very well could say, I don't want to work in an environment where it's not mandatory, and I will leave and go to work somewhere else where it is mandatory. So I can see both sides of the issue, but I guess I come down 51% in saying we need to function as a municipality. We need to work with the people that are in our employment to provide a safe environment for everybody. And this policy seems to, the proposed policy seems to deliver that. So just my thoughts.
They're good thoughts. And what I want to, just in brief, we started working on this 6 months ago, the research and the preparation for the 6 months ago, because we knew the day would come. We didn't know which day it would be, and we didn't want to have 48 hours to produce a policy. We're monitoring this every day. This is what we're recommending now. If more serious policy or steps are required, we will recommend that. We will not shy away from moving the benchmarks up further. Based on where we see the stats and looking at all the other policies that are out there and weighing the balance, what you said, Councillor Armstrong, which I think is very valid, this doesn't have to be an opportunity to alienate staff and create divisiveness and conflict in the workplace. It shouldn't be that. But at the same time, we have to have strong measures to protect safety in the workplace. So the last point I will make is the policy we submitted, Donna, in fact, did, in my view, improve it quite a bit in terms of the opening and everything else. So the policy you're seeing is I think at its core what we recommended, but she did put in some additional information, especially in the front end of the policies around different definitions and other things. So I think you have a very good and well-balanced policy that is appropriate for the time frame we find ourselves in right now. And I would anticipate that we may need to adjust this and tailor it further as the weeks and months go on.
Deputy Mayor Windover, comment.
Yeah, thanks for your presentation, but you're talking about percentages here where you're saying that maybe 4 or 5%. should not be made do something that they don't want to do, when 95% of the people should have to put up with it. I find that very hard. In the field I've been my whole life, I can't understand why that is possible. I have got this feeling that you might end up losing a lot more help because you don't vaccinate someone, then let them just stay there. I'm sorry, I just cannot agree with your policy.
I think that is actually really important input to consider, okay? Because and you're in the difficult place of balancing this and getting it right in a situation which still remains pretty fluid and less than predictable, let's say. But I think what the deputy mayor has put forward is something that you should consider, and this is not an easy decision to make to get the balance right here.
Well, I agree with my deputy. We have 2 people off right now that are suspect. Probably that's all it's going to wind up to be, a suspect. This could get a whole lot worse. I think in terms of a municipality, I think we have a duty to set the bar high. If we start to make allowances, then everybody else can start to make allowances as well. We have some community centers, and we're in the process right now of opening a community center for a meeting. And that community center, which belongs to the township, is administered by the township, has to meet every single recommendation. And nobody is getting through that door that isn't 100% vaccinated. How can we make those recommendations to our community centers if we don't make the same recommendations ourselves? And I agree that in the short term, that it's going to cause a hardship for staff, and I have heartfelt for that. But I also realize from what Ron is saying, that if we don't, and I mean everybody, take the precautions that we know we have to do to get out of this thing, that in 6 months' time, we're going to be sitting here wondering what we can do next, because the vaccination is the only hope that we've got of going forward and getting back to some degree of normalcy. So I think to give loopholes to somebody like the municipality that is held up as a benchmark that gives people wiggle room is absolutely sending the wrong message, especially when we are part of the county. Like Ron and I sit on the county council, so here we're part of a decision that says, no, we're not going to do it that way. So even our own county council, we're at odds with. I think we're playing with fire. I think this is inconvenient for people, but I see no other way out. Yes.
I tend to agree with the mayor and deputy mayor, but I have a feeling that we may be losing a very important staff member if we proceed with that kind of policy. And this is such a small organization, and we have the hardest time recruiting good people. And to let a good person go when we can have mitigating measures that keep staff safe, I have a problem going all the way.
Councillor Lamb.
Yeah, and this is our first attempt at this policy. I think as our COVID situation changes, if it does change, let's hope it continues to go on the downward trend. If things change, we can certainly revisit this policy and strengthen the requirements of all employees. I think this is a good way to start. If things change in our world, in our province, in our area, then we may have to revisit this and strengthen it and give it some teeth. Regardless of what employees we lose, we may have to strengthen it. But I think at this point, most of our employees are very compliant, and they're going to be willing to compromise and cooperate with this policy and Trent Lakes senior staff.
Now, one more comment that I would have, our council members our council meetings are now recorded. So this goes out to the general public. How do we turn around then and say to other buildings and organizations that we own that you don't do as we do as we say? Peter, you had a comment?
No, not for this time.
Well, you know, Mayor Clarkson, if I may, I think here's the difficulty. I think if you're looking for consistency in these government regulations, and we're just trying to navigate them and keep you safe and provide you with the best advice to mitigate risk and conflict in your workplace. But take the vaccination passport system, which I don't want to put us off sideways on that. You've got to be vaccinated to attend a restaurant. There's absolutely no requirement in a lot of these restaurants for any of the staff that are serving you to be vaccinated. So if you're looking for consistency in the government regulation, the provincial government regulation, reluctantly, I'm not sure you're going to find it. I went to my barber last week, and no requirement to vaccine passport to go to the barber shop, yet to go to the restaurant, I need a vaccine passport. My barber gets a lot closer to me than my waitress ever should. So the consistency, and it's okay to have a little bit of humor in this because it's a serious topic. And I know it's regrettably pitting people against one another. What we're recommending, and it's only a recommendation, you're going to make the right decision for your community and for your employees. We think this gets the balance right for right now. But don't mistake what I'm saying to mean that if this situation escalates from where it is now, that we will hesitate to act. We will not. We have a number of policies and tools already available to plan for those contingencies, and we will advise all of our municipalities, all of our clients accordingly if we think those thresholds are being approached before they're approached, so that there's a plan in place when they're crossed. And I hope that doesn't happen, and I hope it doesn't go there. So with respect, and I do understand that I am one of very few advisors in this field who is recommending a more moderate and balanced policy. I get that, but we hear and see what everyone else is doing. We're going to stick to our guns on this one, but we are just advisors. You're the decision makers, and you have to be accountable for this. So I think this is an excellent discussion you're having, and I'm pleased that you're having it. So you will have to make that final call.
Well, I'm going to make a final, not final because everybody else, but as far as I'm concerned, we hold our all of our works departments to the highest standards in terms of safety, in terms of insurance. We hold our volunteers to these high standards. As a municipality, we hold ourselves above any of the private sector's recommendations. I don't see why, when something is as deadly as this is, and it is deadly. I don't know why this is the one that we actually treat more forgiving. I understand the complications and all the rest of it, but as you're saying yourself, you're one of the few that's being moderate here. That tells me that everybody else is erring on the side of caution. This is not like changing a speed limiter out. This thing is deadly. And I don't think wiggle room is the way to get out of it. I think sooner or later, this is going to come at us. It's like this has been from the very beginning. We're hoping somebody else is going to tell us what to do. We don't want to take the responsibility. We don't want to be the one that puts our hands up and say the buck stops here. But the government isn't going to do it. They've given us the task of doing that. And I, for one, as sorry as I will be for any inconvenience this causes staff, in all conscience, I cannot support this. I cannot go home tonight and sleep and support this. We have no idea at this point. This thing changes momentarily. And by the time it gets a hold, it can go from here to here so fast that we don't even know what's hit us. So time has told us the only way out of this thing is a vaccine. We're just so lucky that we have that at our fingertips. And to make allowances because of inconvenience, and I know that inconvenience is not small, to me it's not the moral thing to do. And that's the end of my comments. And if anybody else has anything to say, then we'll call for a vote. Yes, Councillor Francis.
I would like to make a proposal that we defer this for a month so that we can sleep on this. I don't know if I'm ready to make this decision today. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but those are my thoughts.
Do we have a month, Donna?
So through you, we think the timing is better now to proceed. So we are aware of anyone that isn't vaccinated, and we put accommodation measures in place for those people that are not going to vaccinate. So I guess my message is that this is a temporary policy. This is never a policy we plan on keeping in place. And I feel that Matthew essentially has our back. He will be there should we need to strengthen it, which we can do at any time, which he elaborated on. But I would say we should proceed as soon as possible with having measures in place to accommodate people that won't vaccinate. It's an additional safety measure for us.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. Matthew or perhaps Donna, I'd like to feel more comfortable that there's something in the wording of the policy that allows us to change it quickly and have the enforcement of the new policy be implemented quickly. So can you share with me the wording in our policy that specifically allows us to do that, so that if we pass this policy today, we also have the latitude to strengthen it with a mandatory one at a future time, sooner or later?
Yeah, I think it's, I know it's in the policy, it's near the bottom, but we absolutely anticipate there's going to be changes. And to Councillor Franzen's point, I mean, I think better than deferring it a month, you could put this in as a safety net. And if upon the reflection of the month and what we see to be the reaction of unions and employees across the province who are, as we speak, being put on unpaid leaves and terminated, I think you're very quickly going to see what the impact of those policies are. And we anticipate that too. So we have a policy that, by the way, was drafted when this one was drafted, which has termination as a consequence. It's ready. So if COVID cases increase 100% overnight, the ink is long dried on that policy. And if we think we've got to put in, extremely strong and persuasive measures to keep you safe, we'll recommend that. I won't hesitate. But based on what we're seeing and based on the profile of your workforce, you do not have an emergency department or an ICU unit in your municipality. If you did, my advice would be very different.
If I may, I'm from Missouri here, Matthew. Can you please point me to the wording in the policy that allows us to change it with virtually no notice and have that implemented?
We will continue to review, balance, and adapt this policy to reflect the needs of our workplace, as well as evolving government and public health guidance. If it is determined that additional precautions are necessary, we may implement new measures, including at an individual level, to protect employees and the public from COVID-19, and may amend this policy accordingly.
Councillor Lamstead.
No,
Sorry, just before we do that, I think if it said something like at any time or something, even more forceful, I would feel more comfortable. Sorry.
That's a good suggestion.
Councillor Lamstead.
I was just going to read that section of the policy, which is section 7, ongoing measures and review.
Yeah, I see it.
Donna, I have a question for you. If Dylan's crew was out working and somebody out there refused to follow the policy and endanger himself or endanger somebody else, would Dylan make arrangements for him, or would he say to him, you either follow this or you're gone? And he's endangering himself. He may be endangering somebody else. is this not the same thing? Like, do we not have the same responsibility to protect the people that we have a tool to do so? Like Dylan has equipment and all kinds of things to protect his people. He spends all kinds of time training people so that they work safely. So that material that he gives a person, when a person goes up on a roof and they've got a rope to tie them up to that roof, that rope is their safety net. Our vaccine is our safety net. And if we're willing to go through and not take that safety net that's been provided for us, and then we make allowances, it's like saying to Dylan, well, you know what, don't worry about that one because they really don't want to follow they don't want to follow what it takes to make them safe. Therefore, don't worry about that one. We'll put them over here cutting grass or somewhere. We don't make allowances anywhere else for people to sidestep what we know can save them. This is saving lives. It's not saving somebody from missing 2 or 3 weeks work. It's saving lives, or it's saving somebody having a debilitating lung and heart issue for years to come. And I think until somebody actually loses somebody close to them or whatever, I think it's because we're rural, I think we tend to think it's for somebody else. But this isn't for somebody else. This is for us. And I come back to the fact that our job is to set the standard way up here. What does Dylan say to the community center that comes to him and say, how many people can I put in there? And Dylan says, well, by the rules and regulations, it should be 42, but we're really not enforcing that because if you want to come and take a test at the door, we can let more people in. So where do we balance? And I guess that's like at some point, this is going to come. Whether we do it today or whether we do it to 6 weeks, all you can see is this thing rolling around. So we can either be ahead of this and protect when we can, or we can say, okay, let's take this here and then have something happen. And then, as I say, for me, it's on my conscience and I'm not going to go there. So whatever we want to do, I want a recorded vote. But I want people to stop and think about what it is and why we're doing it, what the repercussions are, and what our duty is to set the bar.
And
Yes.
Very good.
So Mayor Clarkson, I just want to clarify one thing there that you said. If any, you used Dylan as an example. If any of Dylan's employees willingly declines to follow a directive which is not illegal, unsafe, or immoral, and knowing Dylan, he's going to ask nicely a second time. If they decline, they'll go under this policy. You will go home on an unpaid leave of absence, full stop. We reserve the right under this policy, as any policy that the town or that the municipality has in place, to engage corrective action up to and including termination for non-compliance. And I have a great deal of experience in those issues, and we will not. Part of the compromise here, I think you'll be sending I think you can, if you want to, send a clear message to your staff that you're not going to threaten them with termination, as some other policies are. But the exchange and the compromise for that is, I think you can fairly expect that they will willingly and wholeheartedly, because of that, support and comply with this policy and any reasonable directions that Dylan or others may advise to ensure safety on the work site and in the community. And if they don't, this is not a get out of jail card. There will be consequences, as there is consequences for any employee who willingly refuses to follow a directive of the town, you're not a township, you're a municipality, pardon me, or their manager, period. We have the tools to do that, by the way. We do that all day, every day in our practice, regrettably. Most employees The majority of employees come in and do a good job, cooperatively, safely, every day. 5% of our employee population has a bad day or chooses not to do that. And that 5% will and do meet the business end of the broomstick. And though this is a more moderate policy than what some of the other counties and municipalities may be entertaining, we will not hesitate to ensure it is respected and fully complied with. I can guarantee you that. But you know what? I've said too much. This is your decision, not mine. It's just, and forgive me. Listen, on a personal level, I agree with everything you're saying, but I'm in the job of risk mitigation and for your municipality, okay? And that includes keeping you out of harm's way from unnecessary and anticipated litigation that some of these policies are willingly inviting. And I say this with respect and at some risk, but most of those policies are written by law firms, and law firms are in the litigation business. We're in the safety, protection, and risk mitigation business. And those are two very different approaches to the issue. And that's why our policy is different. And that's why, despite, I'm not by myself on this island, there are others going my way, our way, but I'm reasonably confident that in the fullness of time, this will be the approach that will be enforceable and will address the risk as we know it today. And I don't need to advise you, but I should advise you that if you go in the other direction, you may fairly expect some form of conflict with someone at some point in time. I don't know, I hope not, but I consider it probable.
Well, I consider our job to do what in this particular case. I think this is kind of I think it's a conscience thing.
Yeah.
I think we have to look at this from the degree of concern that we have for the people in general, and also in the example that we are given to exhibit. And I think at this point, unless somebody else has something to add, I'm going, yes.
I just have one comment is we have 3 fire stations. What happens if we don't have enough firefighters to go out on a call because we have to terminate them because they haven't got the COVID shots?
I don't think there's very many that haven't. I think it's only, Donna, was it 3?
So through you, we wouldn't speak specific numbers at this time, but there would be some challenges on the fire department should that happen for coverage in some areas potentially.
But it's not huge. Or maybe it is. I don't
It
know.
could, yeah, we could, you know.
Well, I'm
that's
going to
right.
ask for a recorded vote unless there's more comments. So can we
Sorry, through you. Yeah, we just need a motion on the table first before we call
to
a
accept
vote.
the report?
Yeah, whatever council chooses as the motion. The recommendation at this stage is, like in the report, is that council receive the presentation from the CIO treasurer and Matthew Savino of SHRP regarding the COVID-19 vaccination policy, and further that the COVID-19 vaccination policy be adopted. That's the recommendation. But yeah, we don't have a motion yet.
Now you put the motion.
I will make that motion with the caveat that we tighten the policy with the words "at any time" in that section 7.
Do we have a seconder? Okay.
Okay.
Can we call for a
Yeah,
recorded vote?
so I will call for
And
the
the
record-
seconder was Councillor Lampstead?
Yep, perfect, thank you. Okay, so we will start with you, Mayor Clarkson. So you can go ahead. Are you for or against?
Against.
Councillor Franzen,
In support.
Councillor Lambshead,
In support.
Deputy Mayor Windover,
Against.
and Councillor Armstrong.
In support.
And
And that motion has carried. Thank you, and thank you for your presentation and putting up with us.
No, and Mayor, you know what, it was a good discussion. I hope that none of my comments were deemed as, you know, argument or anything else, but it was a good discussion. I just wanted to make sure you were fully informed, and you are, so thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, so we don't have any other delegations. Staff reports, public reports, we don't have any. Recreation facilities. Dylan, are you there? And I think you're going to speak about the Odenang site layout and update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Hopefully we've got a little lighter topic on our hands with this one. Before you, you've got a report regarding kind of setting up a layout for the Odenang Park and some of the things that have been coming through the EDAC and the streetscape master plan. I've tried to do up a little image there to kind of show where myself and the EDAC have discussed certain items roughly being, this isn't exactly to scale with the lot lines or anything. The objects themselves are relatively to scale. So we've got the pavilion as discussed there, kind of in the middle along the pink granite rock. The dock is shown as a brown stick there along the water. That's in, I think Lynn's still working away at that. There's EDAC wants to put a Muskoka chair in there, an oversized Muskoka chair for a photo op. The bike station is identified there. And then the green and gray strip up to the north there is a garden that would mirror the one that is there to kind of brighten up that corner towards the Main Street a little more. Locations were chose to optimize views, onto the lake and, the playground proximity to kind of the patio there. The parents could kind of keep an eye on the children from there if they wished. Bike station closest to the road. If you're gonna have to come and repair your bike, you don't want to trudge it through the park with a set of bike cleats on or anything like that. So we're kind of looking for a general acceptance of this layout as well. At the time of this report, we hadn't heard back about the playground grant. We have heard back now, and unfortunately, we did not receive the grant funding for the playground. The goal was to get notice of that and apply for a minor variance for the playground and the pavilion within the same minor variance. Since we don't have, go ahead for the playground, as council's direction at this point was it be self-funded. We don't have funding for it at this time. It would be my recommendation to continue on the path of the pavilion, and it might work out that we have to do two separate minor variances, but if we wait for a playground grant, we could be talking years before things get underway and really get developing this space. Additionally, the EDAC was allotted $30,000 for a structure at the park. EDAC has kind of got their eyes set on a 24 by 32 structure. I'm not sure if Anne is online here and has a copy of that picture, but in speaking with our building department, and possibly Terry might have some insight as well, the structure we're probably pegging in the neighborhood of 80 to 100,000, and because it's so far exceeded the budget allotment, I kind of wanted to get some sort of conditional go ahead from council that they're still interested in that, or if they want us to potentially pare back that dream kind of thing. Just get a little bit more direction on that before we got into procurement documents and minor variances and building permits and whatnot. So yeah, we're overall looking for general approval of the site layout and some agreements to proceed with issuing a procurement document for the proposed pavilion structure. Sorry, I'm stuttering here. Without any outstanding funds to be included in the 2022 budget, we would be looking, this obviously we're getting towards the end of the major building season here, so we would be looking at carrying the monies over from this year into next year with construction in 2022.
Okay, questions?
Yeah,
Councillor
a couple
Franzen.
questions and a comment. Has the Buckhorn Community Center been approached? Judy Werther was interested in, because she does the Rock the Locks, about the positioning of the pavilion and the play center.
Through you, Mayor, I believe I do believe that the BCC had concerns about the play structure. I wasn't aware of the pavilion. We haven't had a whole lot of discussion with the BCC on this one. We were going off of the size of the play structure that council had put forth, in their recommendation being the roughly 1,600 square feet, and this is really the only spot that it would feasibly go.
I think that would be just a courtesy call. Just that she's aware of what we're doing. Dylan?
Sure.
If I may interrupt,
Yep.
I do know, I am on the EDAC, and I do know that Judy, forget her last name, was brought to the site and consulted in terms of the location.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she was, I think it was Christine Brickman and the subcommittee that met with Judy McWhorter or Whitter. So that did happen. Sorry, Dylan, but I did know that.
That's okay. Thank you.
And another, just a comment. I think this should all be deferred till we do budget discussions, because this is way far above what we had originally anticipated.
Dylan, if I can ask a question, do you think that the size of the pavilion is going to overpower that space? And in my view, the bike station would be better at the Tourist Information Center. That's where people come around the corner and need to fix a bike. I don't know that the visibility of that bike station is going to get the attention. And the other thing is it's not going to be, it could be very easily vandalized, where with the lights around the liquor control and the lights that are around the Tourist Information Center, it would be much safer there. But that's an easy thing to move. But when I look at the gazebo that's down by the locks, and it's nice and neat and it tucks in that corner really well, I look at this one as being really big for that space. What do you think?
Through you, Mayor. The size was mostly direction from the EDAC subcommittee. We did lay it out on site with some flags and tape and whatnot. And personally, no, I don't think it overpowers it at this stage. Depending on the height, it would be, like I said, if council wants to send us back to the drawing board, that's kind of what we're looking for at this stage. This is what's been drawn up, through the subcommittee and, and meeting with myself on site. And so we're looking for council's suggestions and, direction.
How much does the stonework add to that?
I don't have a figure for that.
Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for this, Dylan. I think it's a step forward to try and get a layout, and you've done this sort of walkabout to figure out where. Directionally, I am fine with the proposed layout, and I think that the bike repair station did come up at our last meeting, and generally there was support for it there. I have two concerns. One is all of a sudden we're now talking 80,000 instead of 40,000. So not prepared to support that kind of an increase. That would have to be a budget item. And I don't know the order, whether that gets approved first and then we do the RFP or vice versa, but we probably do the budget first because it couldn't be built this year anyway. So that's my first concern, is suddenly we've gone from $40,000 to $80,000, and obviously that's substantial. My second concern is around the minor variance, because I know we're into the 30-meter setback from the water with the gazebo, and I know everybody keeps saying that's no big deal. I'm not necessarily believing that that's the case. I think that is something else that needs to be checked off before we proceed with the gazebo. So I see two steps that need to take place. I mean, again, generally, I can support the layout, but I think we have a budget item that needs to be considered in that 2022 discussion. And I think we have a minor variance that needs to be addressed before we move forward with the RFP. And maybe I'm wrong on both of those, but that's just my take.
I think there's two budget items. There's the playground and the gazebo.
And the playground will
We
get,
have to decide, how we're going to proceed on this.
I agree. Thank
the
you.
playground will get a lot more use than the gazebo. Anyway,
Through you, Mayor, just
Defer this to budget time?
Yeah, I'd make that a motion. That we
Okay.
defer
I
the,
think Dylan knows, they're just.
Dylan, are you there? Did you want to have your,
Yep, sorry, through you, Mayor, just to respond to Carol. In regards to the minor variance, my understanding from talking with Adele is we would need a detailed site plan, to scale, which we would need to know the size of the building, which is why we're looking for more approval from council. So I can't really go for a minor variance until I know how big this building needs to be. And if that hinges on budget, that's fine. We can defer that to budget. That's neither here nor there. I can't go ahead with a minor variance at this stage until I've got a more concrete answer of how big this building is going to be.
Then if that was a motion to defer up to the budget, to receive the report and then to defer the discussion about the layout and the elements of that to budget time, I would second that.
or do you want a motion in principle to get what you have to do preliminary wise, so that in budget time you've got a more accurate? Can you
we
do that?
don't know how much money we're willing to spend. So,
But that's why this in principle would do that, because in principle says you've got to go ahead to research it, but not to, I don't know. Do I have any advice here, Donna?
No, through you. I believe Dylan has provided you options and it would be up to council. It could certainly be a budget discussion because it is a significant increase in costs with the size of that pavilion.
Does he not have to do a certain amount of work in order to be able to come to budget and say this is what it looks like it's going to be?
So through you, in order to do that work, he needs to have an idea of the size.
That's what I mean.
So
Councillor Lambshead.
And a 24 by 32 pavilion nestled up against that rock would not be intrusive, I don't think. I think it is the right size because it's big enough to accommodate some
Music
people
events.
and some setup for music and a multiple of things. You can have private events there that follow our policy. I think 24 by 32 is not out of the question for that area. And it is a fair ways from the water, so it's not like it's going to be right in the 30-meter setback or very far in it. So for me, I would say that the size is appropriate for that park, for the pavilion, and that would allow Dylan, I think, to move ahead and find some pricing and get some ideas as to what a minor variance might or might not pass. And
A certain amount of work has
to give him at least a throw the poor fellow a bone.
Yeah. Like a certain amount of work has to be done in order to.
I'm just thinking this is possibly premature because we're looking at $150,000 when we include the pavilion and the playground. We were already committed to around $6 million on our public works. And we have to decide what kind of impact we want on our ratepayers. So this project may not go ahead at all.
Yes, perhaps we could amend your motion, Peter, to say that we've received the report. We, in principle, approve the layout, but we defer any discussion about funding and go ahead and proceeding with the any
And see
further
if he
until
can-
budget time.
And see if we can get approximate pricing.
Yeah, I would agree with.
Okay. So then you're going to make the amended motion
I'll make the amended
and
motion.
you're going to second it. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay. You're not done yet. Recreation maintenance policy. Boy, I undertook to read that one. It's probably taking you a week. Go ahead, Dylan.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So this, was one of my initiatives earlier in the year that I said I wanted to get done. And with the crazy summer we've had, it's finally here. This is essentially just puts into words what we do now. It's no change from what we do. There's no great, extras. This is just the work that we go through day in and day out here. And it sets the line in the sand for, for staff to see, for council to see. It'll help us with work planning, so we know we can look down the checklist and say we got to fill all these things in our calendar in the month and make sure stuff is getting done. It also provides us a template to apply to future parks, as the master plan develops and new recreation spaces are created. This gives us the opportunity, staff and council, the opportunity to kind of figure out where new assets and recreation sites can be placed within this kind of hierarchy. So yeah, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Yes, Peter.
I just have a comment. I think possibly this should be referred to the Parks and Recreation Culture Committee just for a quick go over. Not necessarily to make recommendations, but I think it's important that they review it.
I think myself that Dylan's quite capable of doing this. I don't know that you need a committee, but that's.
Well, we have a committee, so
No,
I think
know
we
that.
should utilize our committee.
Dylan, has there been any discussion, because we spoke last year and there wasn't the people to do it, between yourself and the county to maintain the roadsides between the church and the liquor store? Because now that we've got the lovely sidewalks and everything in there, that work could really enhance the village, and also some work on the side of the rock.
Through you, Mayor, there was a discussion with the county and the outgoing director of Public Works. My understanding was that the county was going to be doing some work on there. I'm not sure to what level that happened this year. It might perhaps be another good opportunity with the new incoming director of Public Works and the county and I in this off season to sit down and figure out who should do what there. It's, it is a fairly, there's some long stretches in there, and it's pretty big scope for the equipment that we have. There's other departments that have some equipment that would be able to more efficiently handle that task.
You're familiar with it, so maybe if you can coordinate it and get some help in there.
Certainly.
It would certainly certain. As I say, the air looks so nice now that it's a shame to not finish it off. Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, through Madam Mayor. I just want to address Councillor Franzen's comment because it was a legitimate one. I do think this should have been given to the Parks, Recreation and Culture Committee in advance, just as a courtesy. But I also, in having conversations with that chair, I do view this as operational and setting levels of service standards, which I think is the purview of staff. So I don't think that the committee would necessarily have any recommendations or input or a role to play in this because it's setting policy. But again, I do think it would have been the right thing to do to run it by them in advance. So I'm prepared to support this. I think a lot of work has gone into it. I think it's wonderful to have something like this in place. It's a little bit like our Public Works Department, who has standards around, when they plow, all of those other things that are set by the province, actually. But it certainly helps to address expectations that taxpayers and or members of council may have about what your staff does, because they've got tons of responsibilities and it's easy for us to over expect some of the things that you do. So with all of that said, I will make the motion to receive the report and to approve the recreation maintenance policy.
And do we have a seconder? Okay, Deputy Mayor Windover, any further comment? And I just have one further comment, and I've talked to Donna and briefly about chastity, and nobody seems to know where this actually falls. But it's a condition of the little buildings where our where our dump sites are, and the cutting of the grass and everything around them. Because when you drive up to them, they're just, the Buckhorn one is a disaster. So nobody seems to know. I think Donna said it doesn't belong to parks, and Chelsea doesn't know if it belongs to roads, but it should belong to somebody.
Mm-hmm. Through you, Mayor, if I may comment.
Yes, please.
I think that, maybe with the new Public Works super and I haven't had a chance. He's just getting his feet wet now. I think that's something we could table on that same agenda as the roadsides.
I think so too. Yeah. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's nice to go up and pay your dollar and make sure the grass is cut. Okay, so we've had the motion. I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Fire emergency services, we don't have any. Building and planning. Mrs. Waldron. Barb, are you there?
I am here.
And this is license of occupancy for Anthony and Karen Hacker.
All right, good afternoon, Council. And the first report that I'm going to speak to is an application for license to occupancy for Anthony and Karen Hacker. This application was clearly incomplete. As per the policy that has been presently approved by Council, it didn't meet any of the requirements. The application fee was not received, and proof of insurance was not received, and detailed site plan or drawings were not received. This particular dock is located at the end of Mississauga Lane, and the person that had the hackers who had the dock down here, their property is adjacent to the road allowance, but it's actually fairly high up on the hill. It's not too close to where the water is. But just basically going on technicalities of what our policy is requiring, it does not meet the requirements of the policy, and therefore I am recommending that this application be denied and direction be provided to Mr. and Mrs. Hacker to remove the dock from the municipality owned by the public road allowance by October 22nd. And if council approves this, we will be posting something right on the dock directly, and we will be sending a letter in the mail to the hackers.
Okay, a motion and then discussion.
Motion to receive and also support for denying the application and notification that the dock be removed off municipal property.
Okay, that was Councillor Armstrong, and the seconder is Councillor Lambshead. Any discussion? I'm going to call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you, Barb. And you're going to speak to the Jeffrey Bourne application.
Okay, so this application did come in with a bit more information attached to it. He did provide what he thought was the insurance requirement. However, it did not meet our policy because the insurance was supposed to name the municipality as an insured. It was strictly just a homeowner's policy, so it didn't meet that requirement. He also doesn't meet the requirement that he is clearly not adjacent to the road allowance, and I showed that on a GIS mapping that I attached. I think you all have that. His property is, it's near, but it's not adjacent to the road allowance, so he does not meet that requirement as well. Now, Mr. Bourne did pay the $400 application fee. So as per the policy, we would be refunding 50% of that. And that would go back with the letter that's going to advise him that he has to remove the dock, as well as I would be posting on the dock as well. So my recommendation is that the application received for Mr. Jeffrey Bourne be denied with the direction to be provided to Mr. Bourne to remove the dock from the municipality owned public road allowance by October 22nd, 2021.
Thank you. Motion. Councillor Lambshead.
Motion to receive the report and support the recommendation.
Okay, and we have a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Discussion. Call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, review of policy number 5.35, license of occupancy.
Okay, so working through these two applications, it's just like learning a new zoning bylaw. The best way to learn it is to apply applications to it. So working through these two applications, I was going pretty thoroughly through the bylaw, or through the policy. It's clear that I know that this policy came from Mr. Ewart, and I think it came from Lake of Bays. It's a good policy. Some of it's really good. Some of it doesn't fit our municipality. So as I was working through it, I came, and as well when we attended the sites and I could visually see what the issues were out there, where these docks were being placed, and I went on the GIS to, Derek showed me some of the areas that we have really high intense numbers of docks that we need to attend to. I think that we need to take some time, go through the policy, review it, make it fit us, make it fit our needs, with the main direction that I would be aiming for is to mitigate liability for the municipality and have no cost to the municipality. I had a discussion with a ratepayer today about he felt having insurance was, you know, a little bit beyond what the average person should be doing, and I had to explain that this is not something that the municipality is willing to take liability on. So there's lots of passion out there in this subject, to use a word. There's lots of people that have opinions, and I think that this is kind of similar to the short-term rentals. It is going to impact a lot of people, so we may want to include the public. But as I work through the policy, we'll kind of determine whether we're going to go there or not. I did come up with a list of things that occurred to me as I was working through the policy that I think that we should look at. I won't read them all because I'm assured that you've probably read the report. But those were just items that I automatically thought of, and I'm sure that there's more to deal with. I know we kind of have two camps, so almost three camps out there. We have island people that have cottages on islands that have no place to put their boat. That's kind of one situation. We have another situation where people are just deciding to put docks and not ask for permissions. And there's one area that's quite intense. Name isn't occurring to me right now. And then there's situations like these two applications where they're just kind of at the end of road allowances, docks get put in, and then they come to ask for permission after. So I want to make this policy very clear, very easy to read. I found it challenging to read myself, and I'm used to reading these kinds of documents. It was information, it was kind of here, there, and everywhere. I think it should be collated in certain areas. I'm a list person. I like putting like, this is what you need to do, and make it very simple for the person reading the policy so that when they bring their application to us, it is complete. It has all the components that's needed. So yeah, I want to take some time, look at this policy, update it, improve it, bring it back to council.
Sounds good. Comments? Yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Thanks, Barb. I have had occasion to be very familiar with this policy and the various situations of people who want to put docks on our properties. So I have two comments. The first is that I totally support your taking a look at this. I think there are enough holes in it and confusion over it, which is why we have not been able to implement it properly this year. And if we put a policy in place, we should be in a position to implement it. So 100% support the review. The second comment is that as part of that review, I would like one option to be considered, and that is that we do not allow any docks on our municipal road allowances on lakes. And I say that, I know that there are water access only properties. To the best of my knowledge, there are only a handful, if even that many, that are on lakes that do not have marinas. And so I am not sure that we should be creating a policy to support the needs of 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 taxpayers. So my ask is that during the review, that be one of the options that's considered, is to simply not allow docks on municipal road allowances that lead to lakes. And with that, I may be out of order with a comment, but I would make the motion to support staff to review and reassess the license of occupation policy and procedures and bring it back to council, hopefully at a time, late this year or early next year, so that we could put an implementation policy or implementation plan in place for next summer.
I would look at that and say, could the existing people who must get to their cottages be grandfathered? Any other comments? Anybody? Councillor Lambshead.
I think historically there was many locations for water access only cottages that were set aside for them, their docks, because you need to get to your cottage. Some marinas are limited to the size and capacity of docking, so I don't know that eliminating those existing docks for water access only cottages is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah.
And some of those marinas are gone.
I just comment, there was a number of smaller lakes I can think of, Salmon, White Lake, that don't have marina. Pencil Lake. Yeah. So maybe the larger lakes within our municipality mostly have marinas, but most of the smaller lakes don't.
Ms. Walden, would you like to comment on that?
On the lakes, well, on the lakes that don't have marinas right now?
Well, just on, like, it's a problem. I understand what Councillor Armstrong is saying, but I don't think in reality that we can take people who live on lakes and have lived there for a long time and take their transportation away from them. So do you have any kind of a solution for that? Like, as I say, is grandfathering something? Is it something that the township should designate spaces? Do we have spaces to designate?
Well, I think I need to do some research before I can answer that question. Being new to the township, when you say Pencil Lake, I don't even know where that is right now. So I am not going to answer that question. But I was making notes, and I'm going to, I want to see how many marinas we have in the township, where they are, where all our road accesses are. I want to get a big picture view before I come back to you with some solid information.
So would anybody like to make a motion to defer?
I think, sorry, the motion is just to proceed with the policy review.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Carol, you wanted to make, you did make
Yeah,
that
I
motion?
make that motion.
Okay, and seconder? Which one?
That's your,
Okay.
it doesn't matter.
Deputy Mayor Windover? All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, purchase of the second vehicle for building and planning.
Okay, through you, Mayor Clarkson. The intent of this report is to provide information to council to make an informed decision for the building department to move ahead with obtaining requests for quotations to purchase a second vehicle for the building and planning department. So this is my 7th week here. It's been a very busy 7 weeks, which I'm going to enlighten you a little bit later on. But one thing that has been made very clear to me is that Matt needs some help outside. So he runs basically from morning till past 4:30 doing inspections. So we've been trying to break things up, me taking kind of some of the ones down in the south end and him going to the north. When I can fit them in my schedule as well. But we do need a second vehicle. We need something different than a truck. Matt was off for a week, and I learned very quickly how to maneuver a truck on fire roads, and it was challenging. So second vehicle I'm looking for is something smaller, looking for like a 4-wheel SU drive that will also serve the planning department. The planning department is always going out, inspecting sites, checking properties for different applications that are coming in, posting notices, and I know that it would be an easier vehicle for the planning staff to maneuver as well. As long as it has 4-wheel drive, we should be good out there. The Building and Capital Reserve currently has $46,000 in the account. This will be a 2022 budget item. But given the trend out there of how long it takes to get vehicles, I'm just seeking council's approval that I can go forward with the request for quotation process so that we can start getting quotes in order to get this approved as soon as possible, because we probably will have to order the vehicle.
Barb, you need a Jeep.
Yeah, yes.
Seriously,
You want
you need?
funny story. I got a Jeep at OSM and I drove it 3 times before I left. So, but I loved it.
Okay, have we got a motion, please?
I'd make a motion in support of
Okay.
getting in vehicles.
Okay, Councillor Franson has made that motion, and Councillor Armstrong? Second. All in favor of that motion? All in favor. Okay, council. Carried. Finance, none. Administration, none. Corporate services. Jesse, are you on there? If not, are you doing this, Bianca?
Yeah, Jessie is on.
She's on?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Okay.
I'm here.
Yeah, this is the purchasing policy limit, upper limit.
Yes, thank you through you, Mayor Clarkson. An updated purchasing policy came forward to council at the September 21st meeting, and council deferred a decision pending a report back on the upper limit of authority to award. Staff have revised the proposed policy to include an upper limit on the delegated authority for the award for the department head and CAO of $1 million. Contracts greater than $1 million would require a council resolution to award and a bylaw authorizing execution of the service agreement. And a bylaw to adopt the updated purchasing policy is included on today's agenda for council's consideration.
Okay, do we have a motion and conversation? Councillor Lambshead, I see your hand almost going up.
Motion to receive.
Okay.
And sorry, and approve.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Windover, seconder? Any more conversation? If not, all in favor? Motion two is approved. Okay, Jesse, award for Peterborough County ARFP number P, voting system.
Thank you. Through you again, the municipality participated in a joint RFP issued by the County of Peterborough on behalf of its lower tier counterparts for services for an internet, telephone, and paper ballot voting system. All of the lower tier municipalities within the county participated in the joint RFP. 3 bids were received and reviewed individually by the clerks of each of the lower tier municipalities, and each participant will be awarding the joint RFP to the highest scoring bidder, being Simply Voting Inc.
Okay, motion and conversation. Motion, Councillor Brand.
And comment.
Okay.
I don't know if we need to count the ballots. There was $15,000 to buy a machine that count the ballots that were done by hand, not by electronic means.
Jesse, do you want to speak to that? Councillor Franson?
Yeah, I can speak to the original report that I presented with the paper ballot considerations did include a estimate for a tabulator, which was $5,500, which is what Havelock, Belmont, Methuen did in their last election, where they had paper ballots, a similar setup to what we're proposing for the 2022 election. And they also had an estimate of $1,800 for an on-site staff person to be there to monitor and administer the tabulator. We've made no commitments to that yet, but I will be including it in the budget to be prepared.
Did that answer your question, or have you got another one?
No, I just have a comment. I still don't think that we have an urgent need. I don't think we're talking about a lot of ballots, and I think that they could be tabulated by hand.
It's part of the fun. Okay, so we need to have, you're looking for a motion to either purchase that?
No, I'm just looking for to approve awarding the RFP to Simply Voting and to allow myself to sign any contracts for this. The tabulator, I can bring it back at another council meeting. It was not included in the estimate for this. They were not able to provide a tabulator. Simply Voting was not. So we would have to go through a separate process, either for 3 quotes to get that. So I can bring that back to council at a later date, but that was not part of this joint RFP.
Okay, so we know what we're asked for here, and Councillor Lambshead, you're going to make that motion?
Motion to remove that and the council authorize the clerk to execute documents and agreements required for the provisions of the voting system with Simply Voting Inc. on behalf of the corporation.
And are we having a seconder? Councillor Armstrong? All in favor? That's motion is carried. Now, we've got a lot of correspondence for information. We can have a motion to receive them all, or anybody can pull something out of it if they choose to.
Sorry, through you. Could we just call for the vote again for that one? I had my head down and I didn't.
Sure.
Yeah.
It was Councillor Lambshead and Councillor Armstrong, I believe.
Correct. Yeah, sorry, just the call for the vote. Yeah,
Yep,
sorry.
all in favor? Yep, carried.
Perfect, thank you.
So anybody want to pull any of these out? No. I would like to support the resolution regarding the OHIP eye care, since we were one of the ones that put that motion out there. That is, I guess it's 11.1.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, this is just support for our resolution that was sent regarding eye care.
All right, so we don't have to support it again. It's already supported. Thank
Yes.
you.
All correspondence that is a support resolution is something you've already either supported or received.
Okay, so then we just need a motion to support all of these.
Yeah.
Receive them all. Councillor Lambshead and Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? Carried. City of Sarnia, renovations. That's part of that same group, I believe. 12.1. Yes,
I would make a motion to receive.
okay. And a seconder? Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Motion is carried. Royal Canadian Legion advertising request. Councillor Franzen?
Support the minimal size ad.
Okay. And a seconder would be?
Second, with a little comment or a question of our
Okay.
treasurer, CAO treasurer. We do have, I believe, still amount in our budget to accommodate that.
Yes, so through you, there is an amount of $1,345 left in the advertising budget for council. And this is the same cost as last year.
Sure.
You just knew that was coming, Donna.
Through you, yes, I did.
Okay, so we've got Councillor Franzen made the motion. Yeah, Councillor Lambshead did the seconding, and all in favor? Motion is carried. Township of Scugog, structure inventory and inspections. Anybody want to speak to this or make a motion? Councillor Armstrong?
Motion to receive.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Lambshead, all in favor? Motion is carried. Bylaws, Jesse, you're going to speak this? Agenda memorandum.
Yes, thank you. Through you, there were several bylaws on today's agenda that did not have their own public meeting or a corresponding council report. The first is B 2021-109, which is the zoning bylaw amendment for file 2109 for British Empire Fuels. A public meeting was held on June 15th. The application was supported by council and staff were directed to prepare a bylaw pending the delivery of the reference plan, which has now been received. B 2021-110 is the zoning bylaw amendment for file 2118 for Martin's Curry. A public meeting was held September 7th. The application was supported pending receipt of a site plan agreement, and that site plan agreement is B 2021-111.
Okay, and we don't need a motion for that one, I understand. Now 13.2, B 2021 purchasing policy. Need a motion? Okay.
Motion to approve is.
Okay,
presented
Councillor
earlier.
Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor, motion is carried. Zoning bylaw amendment for file number 2009 British Empire Fuels. Motion, please.
Motion to approve. I think this is
Okay.
like year number 10.
Councillor Lambshead and Councillor Armstrong, all in favor. zoning bylaw for Martins. Curry, motion. Okay, Councillor Lambshead, Councillor Franzen, all in favor? It's approved. Site plan development agreement for Martins Curry, motion. Deputy Mayor Windover, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Motion is carried. Do we have any business arising out of a previous meeting? Anything anybody wants to get off their chest? Okay. Any notices of motion? And Councillor Franzen, you're going to speak to your motion.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Mayor. The motion on the speed limit reduction. Whereas the area known as Nogies Creek has a posted speed limit of 80 kilometers an hour on County Road 36. And whereas it is a residential area with several businesses, including a convenience store, 2 large trailer parks, as well as being in close proximity of the municipal office and Nogies Creek Fire Hall. Whereas there are many school buses that pick up and drop off students in this area. Whereas the municipality is in receipt of a petition with 125 signatories requesting a speed limit in this area be decreased to 60 kilometers an hour. Now, therefore, the council requests Peterborough County to reduce the speed limit in this area to 60 kilometers an hour. Further, council requests the Ontario Provincial Police to target this area with increased enforcement. I have to make an amendment. I have 13 additional names that I picked up this morning, and I told them not to take any more names.
Okay.
So there's been quite a bit of interest. I noticed on the list of people, there were a lot of truck drivers that have a hard time accessing 36 from some of the side roads. And it's been a real danger to school children.
Okay. So now we deal with this motion at the next meeting, right?
I don't, it is on the agenda, so it
can be dealt with today. Okay.
Well, one other amendment, I think it should also be sent to the county police service board.
Now, does the county not have to actually be the one that reduces this?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, this is just a recommendation to the county.
Okay.
And it should be sent to the county, the director of public works, and it should also be sent to the OPP.
So then what you're asking for today is the support of council to forward it to the county and
to forward this on to the county.
Okay. So, Councillor Lambshead?
I will make that motion with a comment that we support this and send it to the county for review. I'm not sure about targeting the area for OPP, but I'm sure that once the speed limit is reduced, they will naturally go ahead and do that. But I think it's important to reduce the speed limit here for many reasons. Obviously, exiting and entering the highway, and we've give permission for 2 lots near the end of Moonline Road. We've given permission for 2 lots near Bessie Avenue South. So it is getting a little more congested in that whole area. So I think it's important to reduce the speed limit for everyone's safety.
And the speed limit used to be lower than that because I got a ticket just out here. Where haven't I got a ticket?
I believe I did probably 20 years ago.
You got one too?
Because I believe too that the speed limit was lower. It was 60 for a longer period before you got into Bob Cajun.
Yep, it didn't get 80 till you got right out here because he followed me. Anyway, that's all right. So we've got a motion on the floor to forward this to the
I'll
county.
certainly second that motion.
You're going to second your motion.
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, I have an update on the county's response to this inquiry. I've had a couple of residents contact me regarding the speed limit on County Road 36. So our process is to refer this matter to the County of Peterborough as it is their jurisdiction. Kendra Reed with the County of Peterborough has provided an update to say that she is currently in the process of conducting a technical study for County Road 36 for a speed reduction request of the existing regulatory posted 80 kilometers per hour from the Municipality of Trent Lake's office west to Gypsy Point Road. And additionally, they are reviewing warrants for school bus stop ahead signs within the section of County Road 36 as requested by concerned residents. So the county has been made aware of this issue, and it is on their radar. They do have a number of steps that they take when completing a review for speed limit reductions and for traffic signs to be erected.
So,
I
Councillor
think this
Franzen?
just reinforces
Yep.
the county in their possible decision of reducing the speed limit.
You lit a fire. Well done. So the motion is then to forward this on to the county.
Mhm.
And Councillor Lamb said you made that
Yes, I
motion
did.
and you seconded. So seconded by Councillor Franzen. All in favor? That is carried.
So that should be 138. I'll just give this to Bianca later on. You can add it to the.
Kendra did one on that stretch by the beach at on Sandy Lake, and she was very thorough.
Yep.
Okay, liaison reports for external boards and committees. Council Armstrong?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I was at a meeting for the Cavendish board as well as Galway in the last week and a half. Galway is effectively shut down. There's one event that they are renting it for a luncheon and possibly bringing Tai Chi back, but that hasn't been decided yet. Otherwise, there's really nothing going on there, although the Historical Society is continuing to operate out of there. Contrarily, Cavendish has a fair amount of activity going on. They've rented it out to a movie crew for a couple of weeks during the days. They have a firearms safety course coming up, which has rented the place for 1 or 2 weekends, I forget. They're planning a Halloween kind of trick or treat. And they had a yard sale recently that yielded $2,000 or $3,000. So that's the report from the 2 hall boards that I went to.
And I have one from the Lakehurst one because we were trying to determine how to manipulate this new policy. And I think they're pretty much in favor with everything that's suggested. The fact that the people who've been on the board for some time don't have to get a police check. They were in favor of getting together on one afternoon on a weekend and having some update on how to use fire equipment, how to use the different, whatever the safety things are and whatever the township decides that they need to have them trained in to keep the insurance down. They gave a copy of their insurance policy, which is probably the same that they've all got. So Donna has that and she had it before. The idea that we floated was when they've got functions like they have at all of these, where they bring in a lot of people to help do things. If the individuals coming in could sign a waiver. So instead of having them sign up for long-term volunteer, when they come in, they could do a waiver and that way everybody knows who they are. That seemed to be a solution that people were happy with. We offered them whatever help that they need if they can come up with things that they would like to do. So one of the things that was suggested is that they put a sign outside saying that the hall is available for, and then list 3 or 4 things to give people an idea as to what they could do because they've got a lot of space. So I was to attend the one meeting that you had at Cavendish. And when I spoke to Kathy, she said, well, the next one's going to be busy. I'll let you know about the next one. Well, then I got conversation. He said that they had expected me there. So the other one, I simply woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and realized I'd missed it. So I've set up to go back and have a conversation. So thank you for taking part in that. And but all in all, they're more than willing to work with whatever they have to do to keep the facilities going. And I think we probably both stress the fact that they are underutilized and that we will certainly help in any way we can to get their usership up. So that's kind of where we stand on the 3 community centers.
I just have one question. I don't know if Carol can answer it or if it's a question more to staff. It seems to be the renovations on the Galway Hall are going at a snail's pace. I drive by there almost every day to work, and I think I've seen one person there. They've got the insulation and vapor barrier up, and it seems to have been up for weeks and with virtually no siding going up.
Who's the construction crew, do you know?
I can't remember who we awarded it to.
Robert?
So through you, I would suggest that Dylan could likely speak to that and give you a status update if he is still there.
Are you still on there, Dylan?
No?
No.
Okay. We can find out.
I
then.
did, sure.
Yep.
It's no emergency. It was just, seemed like there was nothing happening.
Anybody else a comment?
Through you, Mayor Clarkson, I can look it up on Cloud Permit if you just give me a second. I just need to know the address. Does anybody know the address?
Something Galloway Road.
Galloway Road? Okay, I'll try that.
We all knew that.
480, perhaps 480.
40, okay.
Just over the hill from the fire department.
And it's most likely availability of materials that seems to be getting more difficult.
It could be.
Well, people have been pushed and pushed where they're trying to get 2 or 3 jobs done at the same time before they freeze up. Okay, we'll proceed until you
Yep.
get that information
Yep.
and then you can bring that back. So we're going into a closed meeting. Everybody okay with that now?
Yep.
Okay. Council is going into a closed meeting to discuss a personnel matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. Anyone that is listening or viewing the electronic meeting may remain on the line for when council rises from the closed session. We need a motion to go into closed. Deputy Mayor Windover and Councillor Lamsett, all in favor? And that motion is carried. Okay, now we're going to hang on a minute until we all
to do when they dug the harbor and stuff.
Okay, so we've got the motion to rise from closed. We've done that. Now we need business to
Sorry,
rise.
Yeah, I didn't get the motion to rise from closed, if we could do that one again.
Okay.
Sure.
Motion to rise from
Okay,
closed.
Councillor Armstrong, Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? We're rised. We need a motion to adopt the closed minutes, from September the 7th, regular closed meeting. Do you want me to say that again?
So moved.
No.
Adoption of adoption of minutes for the regular closed meeting of September the 7th. Councillor Lambshead, Deputy Mayor Windover, all in favor? That has carried. Now, confirming bylaw. We need a motion to approve the confirming bylaw, please. Councillor Franzen, Councillor Armstrong, all in favor? Thank you. That has passed. Now, would anybody like to adjourn, or would you like to hang around for a while?
Had enough fun for one day.
Enough fun for one day.
Yes.
Thank you, folks. All in favor? Would you like names?
Yes, please. I
Okay.
have a motion and
Okay.
names,
Deputy
please.
Mayor Windover, Councillor Franzen, Councillor Lambshead, and Councillor Armstrong, and
All in
Mayor
favor.
Clarkson.
All in favor.
Wonderful.
Pick two.
Wonderful. We all done it.
Take two.
Pick two.
Take two. Thank you, folks.